Others only echo that which we whisper to them in secret. I've been saying this a lot in some of my recent videos, and we've been talking a lot about personal relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships. And this saying was actually inspired by Neville Goddard, who, in his lecture, Mental Diets, mentioned it. It is apparent, based on what we're experiencing in relationship, as we track it back to the inner conversations, inner speech, that generated that experience, there only is God. There is no other. Now, Neville mentions, and I'd like to relate what I'm going to say next together to what I mentioned, which is a result of self-realization, which then appeared, we can say echoed, in a number of texts that I was reading. Vedic philosophy, in which it stated in these texts, and many that would speak about these texts, that the true way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. We eventually come to this realization. Now, Neville, he says, every time we exercise our imagination lovingly on behalf of another, we are literally mediating God to that one. Our true way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. If the individual that appears, which is an appearance to God, desires love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, there's nothing wrong with them. They seek to know thyself and experience the true nature of thyself. And that's what we get to do. The Bible, it teaches us precisely how to experience these wonderful gifts, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, as life experiences, as he says here. We are told that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But do we know that man's thinking follows the tracks laid down by his own inner conversations? To turn the tracks to which we are tied in the direction in which we want to go, as the relationships, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, personal relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships. He says, we must put off our former conversation, which is called in the Bible the old man, and be renewed in the spirit of our mind. Now, speech, he says, is the image of mind. Therefore, to change our mind, we must first change our speech. By speech, it's meant those mental conversations we carry on with ourselves. So, we're imagining people, we're conjuring them up in our mind's eye, and we're having conversations with them. A wonderful question to ask is, are they from the premise of fulfilled desire? Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You desire to experience these wonderful life experiences. Nothing wrong with that. So, some of the conversations that I've had, for example, that were not from the premise of fulfilled desire, were imagining people where I was looking for compliments, as in, if this person compliments me, I will know that I am loved. as we mentioned, your true way of being is love. So why would we need someone to compliment us to validate it? Another one was imagining myself altering my behavior to match what I perceived as my partner's interests. I realized that was all end-to-end imaginal activity. And sure enough, at one point, it would play out. Another one was avoiding expressing personal opinions, because I was afraid that if I shared my personal opinions, it would result in conflict with my friends, my clients, my romantic relationships. And sure enough, it would appear that way because I was imagining it to be that way. Another one was seeking validation through social media. Back in the days, I used to have a personal Facebook profile. And one of the things that I would imagine, if I make this post, then this person who I'm interested in, if they like it, that means they like me. If they don't like that post, that means they don't like me. I'm imagining that. I'm carrying on this imaginal scenario with this person. Another one was refraining from pursuing personal goals for fear of disapproval. So I would imagine that if I genuinely desire to experience something in life, this other person would not approve of it, so I should not do that. In the past relationship specifically, I imagined that if I took time for myself to enjoy some of my hobbies, this other person would be upset about it. And sure enough, it appeared that way. Now, why I'm saying these particular ones is because I no longer have these experiences. I receive compliments, yet I no longer have imaginal activity of me validating myself based on compliments. And so how does it appear? If I receive a compliment, thank you, gratitude. If I don't receive a compliment, gratitude, thank you. As in, I'm already fulfilled. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. True way of being. Same is to be said about expressing personal opinions. Used to be before that if I shared something that was a personal opinion, which I don't see anyone sharing it, I would imagine that the person that I was interested in, or friends, people on social media, would not accept me. And so I wouldn't allow myself to say it. And I would suppress that desire. I was not carrying on inner conversations, inner speech. I was not thinking from the premise of fulfilled desire. Now, no shame and condemnation. He says, we imagine the wish fulfilled and carry on mental conversations from that premise. Imagine, I am love, I am that. I am peace, I am that. I am bliss, I am that. I am fulfillment, I am that. I am happiness, I am that. Except I am that, regardless of interpretation of appearances. And then carry on mental conversations from that premise. So it is very apparent to me now, more so than ever before, and I trust as you've been applying this information that the same is with you as well. If I am carrying on conversations from the premise of not being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which doesn't make any sense now, knowing that our true way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And if it is not, the inner speech is not from the premise of having love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, I am that, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, I change those inner conversations to be from the premise of fulfilled desire. For example, in relation to the examples I mentioned earlier, life is experienced as a big affirmation of my true way of being. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And sure enough, I see it all over the place. Isn't it wonderful that we share the commonality? And sure enough, people appear that way. I've seen friends who were not interested in a particular subject all of a sudden be interested in that particular subject. Why? Because I imagine experiencing friendships, sharing common interest. This was also true recently. I took my cousin's 2 sons snowboarding a few weeks ago. It was their first time snowboarding, so I got to teach them that. That was a wonderful experience. And my cousin, she went to the restaurant that was in the ski resort, and she said, why don't you guys meet us here afterwards? So we met up with her, and I said, what were you doing? She's like, I was listening to an audiobook. I said, what book are you listening to? And she said, The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. As I started to imagine that my family also shares these kinds of interests. See, back in the days, I would think that I have these interests, I'm going in this particular direction, and they're going in this other direction. And sure enough, they would appear that way. Then when the conversation was from the premise of fulfilled desire, others show up, revealing wonderful interests that I have, that we get to enjoy. It appears that way. They were excited about snowboarding. She was excited about me taking them snowboarding. She was also excited about talking about The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Romantic relationships, the same thing occurred. I met someone, you would go on dates, and you would have these interests, and because I would imagine them not sharing these interests with me, they would appear that way. Then later on, after applying this information, I imagined going on dates, and when I was in relationships, that they would also share these common interests. And sure enough, when I brought up these subjects, and I trust you've experienced this as well, they appear to be interested in those particular topics, interested in those particular activities. Now, in the Hermetica, it states that there were 2 gifts bestowed upon humanity. They were mind and speech, which he brings up in the lecture. He says, with the gift of mind and speech, you create the conditions and circumstances of life. He said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word, said Hermes, is Son, and mind is Father of the Word. They are not separate, one from the other. For life is the union of word and mind. You and your inner talking or word are one. If your mind is one with your inner conversations, then to be transformed in mind is to be transformed in conversation. It was a flash of the deepest insight and taught Paul to write, put off the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Put on the new man, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Is to change your inner conversation, for speech and mind are one. A change of speech is a change of mind. So, what do we change our speech to? From the premise of fulfilled desire. I am that. What would it look like if it was true? What would be the conversations you would have with that person Were you in an ideal relationship with them? That's it. That's how we apply the two gifts, mind and speech. And then sure enough, we witness the changes. May happen right away, may happen in a day, a week, not my concern. There's only God. Only God appears, only God animates all that appears through the conscious use of the two gifts, mind and speech. Thus you have a mind which is fundamentally blank. It's blank. Mind does not have any power over you. It does not control you. You place in mind what you think. In the earlier stages, I had this belief that would be playing out as theater, and others would echo this belief as well. That this mind was something that was very difficult to control. And sure enough, it would appear that way. So consider this for a moment. We're the ones imagining what God appears as. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Speech is the image of mind. That means we're imagining what we relate to: body, mind, speech, other person, world, whatever appears. Mind is an appearance because you can witness the mental phenomena in mind. Mind is a blank container in which mental phenomena occurs in. Identification to that mental phenomena results in appearances, physical appearances of that mental phenomena. If you observe mental phenomena without identifying with it, what happens to it? It disappears. And then what? Imagine mental phenomena from the premise of fulfilled desire. And then you'll witness the changes occur. God does everything. The individual that appears imagines what God appears as. That's prayer. As he says, to attempt to change the world before we change our inner talking is to struggle against the very nature of things. One can go round and round in the same circle of disappointments and misfortunes, not seeing them as caused by their own negative inner talking, but, as he said, caused by others. It could be tempting, we could say, to point visibly to this world and say, because of this and because of that. There is no other cause other than the one cause within, I am. Beyond the individual mind, that is the Father that is referred to in the Bible, that externalizes as what you imagine, appears to rearrange the entire world to reflect what you imagine. He says, for the solution of all problems lies just in this. The second man, the Lord from heaven in all of us, is trying to become self-conscious in the body, that he may be about his Father's business. What are his labors? To imitate his Father, to become master of the Word, master of his inner talking. You are master of the Word. You are master of your mind. Thus, I recommend, don't generate enemies with your mind, enemies with your word, enemies with how you relate to the two gifts that were bestowed to experience your true way of being: love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. I have a lot of friends who are mental health professionals. They say, you know what, you're onto something when you say, don't make mind an enemy. Don't make the inner speech an enemy. They notice a common pattern with those that appear to not have this ability to change their inner speech easily from the premise of whatever, undesirable, to the premise of fulfilled desire. There seems to be a commonality. They make enemies with their mind. The way they speak about their mind, the way they speak about the contents in their mind, is generating unnecessary resistance to applying the two gifts, mind and speech, consciously. And so they find it challenging to carry on inner conversations or inner speech from the premise of fulfilled desire. This was very insightful and makes a lot of sense. So when we acknowledge that the mind is fundamentally blank, pure, and we're the ones carrying on conversations with others in our mind's eye, and they're appearing that way, and there's no shame or condemnation, and we also acknowledge that mind doesn't fight you back. Your beliefs don't fight you back. If you believe that they do, then it's experienced that way. Something interesting happens. We acknowledge that, you could say, we are the master of the word, master of our inner talking. As he says, that we may mold this world of ours into a likeness with the kingdom of love. You acknowledge your true way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Love being your true way of being. How could your mind suggest otherwise? That's mental phenomena, past imaginal activity. No fear in relation to the past imaginal activity. We no longer identify with. He says, every time we exercise our imagination lovingly on behalf of another, we are literally mediating God to that one. Always use your imagination masterfully as a participant, not an onlooker. In using your imagination to transform energy from the mental, emotional level to physical level, extend your senses. Look and imagine that you are seeing what you want to see, that you are hearing what you want to hear. The prophet said, "Be ye imitators of God as dear children." So how would I imitate God? Well, we are told that God calls things that are not seen as though they were seen, and the unseen becomes seen. Here's an example. How would I send my word to help a friend? He says, I would imagine that I'm hearing his voice, that he is physically present, that my hand is on him. Then I would congratulate him on his good fortune. Tell him that I've never seen him look better. I would listen as though I heard him. I would imagine that he is telling me he has never felt better. He has never been happier. And I would know that in this loving, knowing communion with another, a communion populous with loving thoughts and feelings, the true way of being, which is love, that my word was sent, and it shall not return unto me void, but it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent. Desire means having. Why do I say that? Well, he said this in one of his lectures as well. Actually, it was his book. It was the book, Out of This World. To desire a state is to have it. To desire a state is to have it. Desire means having. Desire means being. What do I mean by that? As mentioned, your true way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Imagine it from the premise of how we desire to be, such as the example that he shared. Or, simple. Everywhere I go, people accept me for who I am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. This appears more so each day in increasing frequency on a continuous basis. I experience this in my romantic relationships, friendships, family. as pleasant surprises of the being I truly am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. We desire to experience those things. Nothing wrong with us. The individual that appears is given desires. The individual that appears accepts the desires as fulfilled. And then in relation to what appears, ensures that the conversations, the inner speech, is from the premise of fulfilled desire. And then it appears more so. I've seen this happen in my romantic relationships over the years. Relationships keep getting better and better and better. What does that mean, better and better? Well, it's what I desire to experience, which is my true way of being. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So, whatever that looks like. We do wonderful, fulfilling activities. Our conversations are from the premise of love. Happiness is made a priority automatically. Fulfillment is experienced in whatever we're doing. Conversations, out and about, traveling. Experienced with. This is the key when it comes to applying this information. Now is where all the power is, as he says here. Now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation. It is only what is done now that counts, even though its effects may not be visible until tomorrow. And that's fine. As you acknowledge that you already are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, there is no need to wait for anything. You're not concerned about how things play out. You're not concerned, and there's no conditions. Full self-acceptance. I call this true self-acceptance. True self-acceptance. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And these attitudes unfold within us, as he says, unfold within us in the form of mental conversations. Inner talking from premises of fulfilled desire is the way to consciously create circumstances. What we appear to seek for is that which we already are. We are already love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Acknowledge what I mean by that. It's not something that I theoretically came up with because it sounds nice. Yes, it does sound nice. It's a result of realization, contemplation. I like how he said here, in using your imagination to transform energy from the mental, emotional level to physical level. Extend your senses. Look and imagine that you are seeing what you want to see. We all have the ability to be aware of our inner conversations. We have the ability to feel, let's say, I'm having a conversation with someone and I feel a disconnect. Who's generating that experience? The feeling of disconnect is happening within. So I put off that former conversation. I captured the feeling of being connected. I am cannot be divided. At the absolute level, there is no other. The individuals that appear are emanations from that one source. There is no other. So, what do we imagine of another? Knowing that our true way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As he said, every time we exercise our imagination lovingly on behalf of another, we are literally mediating God to that one. So we desire love in our personal relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships, family relationships. Nothing wrong with that. Love is our true way of being. What would the feeling be like if it were true? It is true. And are we carrying on conversations from that premise? No shame in condemnation, if not. If in the moment we're aware we are carrying on conversations, inner speech from the premise of not being love, there's the opportunity. Change those conversations. That is how love appears as. You know your true way of being is love. You have the experience, I feel love. You experience it perhaps in deep meditation, deep contemplation. And you perhaps desire to experience it. What does it look like? Imagine someone have a conversation from that premise. Someone you know. And sure enough, they appear to have that conversation with you. For others echo what we whisper in secret. And practice, a little bit more so each day, carrying on conversations from the premise of fulfilled desire. And you'll see, as I have, the relationships change. They've always appeared the way we imagine them to appear. There's no other cause. There's only one cause. I am. How do we relate to that one cause in imagination? So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further acknowledge. You can say, to desire is to have. Desire means I am that which I desire. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As I accept that feeling of being fulfilled, inner conversations arise from that premise automatically in loving, harmonious relationships with others. I allow my inner speech to be from the premise of being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in ways I truly desire. Others appear to echo what I whisper in secret, as ultimately there is no other, as there's only God. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.